Welcome to Extremely Valid Points.
We're three business owners and friends who enjoy talking about business, marketing, and creativity.
Along the way, we just might happen to make some extremely valid points.
So we'd love it if you would join us in today's conversation.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is Extremely Valid Points, and I am one of your co-hosts. I'm Nathan Sala.
I'm Jenny Sala.
And I'm Dave Wilkins.
Welcome. So today is exciting and special, maybe. We're going to do a new segment of the show called Unscripted Real Talk. Actually, no, it's Real Talk Unscripted. Not that it matters.
Yes.
But so today we're just going to go off script, off the cuff, off the chain, something.
Off of the
because
rail.
everything's
Off of
so
our
scripted
rocker.
before. Yeah.
And so we're just going to have a conversation about something. And so just for experimentation. So after the show, we want to hear your feedback. Tell us what you think of this kind of format, and we want to know. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about the topic of bad bosses. Everybody's had a bad boss. Everybody has a bad boss story. And there's this I love this phrase that everybody's heard, and it's so true about the way that employer-employee relationships work. It's that people don't quit people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's true.
Yeah, I mean, well, relationships are probably the biggest component in your workplace environment. And oftentimes you're in a certain line of work because you like that work, but if you can't work with the people around you, then it's not a good situation.
Yeah. I think almost every time I've quit a job, it was because of the environment that was not, the environment wasn't healthy or good for me to be around. That's probably maybe overgeneralizing a little bit, but there's been times when I've probably stayed longer at a job than I wanted to or should have because I really liked the people and it was comfortable.
Yeah. So having a good boss could be a bad thing.
But leadership, right, is going to determine, how long you stick something out, right?
Yep.
So why is that? My theory is, I think the boss sort of is responsible for creating a culture. Mm-hmm. And so if it's a toxic environment, I think it all goes back to the leadership. If it's not your boss, it's maybe your boss's boss, but somewhere along the line, I believe it's the leader's job and their responsibility to make sure that the culture is a healthy, non-toxic place.
Right. In fact, I would say I've kind of had a bit of a shift in my thinking about leadership in general, in that I used to think that being a good leader was based on like having really good ideas, how well you could execute on something. It's kind of all those practical aspects to leadership. But I've come to realize that I think that one of the key factors in good leadership is setting the tone. Mm. That's really what you need to do as leadership. You need to set the tone, because primarily at that level, when you're at that level, you aren't the one executing things. Ideally, right? I mean, you do have an executive function. Obviously, you're at that level, but you're not the one necessarily tasked with the day-to-day practical functions. So if you set the tone, the people that are doing those things are going to be everyone's going to be on the same page, operating, rowing the same direction, on the same bus, whatever cliche you want to say, right? But I think that if there's confusion, if there's a negative vibe to things, that it's just not going to go well. And so the primary job of leadership is tone setting, and everyone else will really fall in line or decide they're going to go do something else.
Yeah, I get a picture of like a conductor and like an orchestra. Your organization is all of these moving parts. Everybody has their strength. Everybody has their role to play. And when it's all put together. It's a beautiful harmony, and it just works great. And so the conductor is the one that sets the tone, as you said, and they are the one who's responsible for the execution and the delivery of the performance, whatever that is. I think that is a great picture of any picture of leadership. And then I also get the picture of like a coach, of like a football team. Again, you have all these players and they have their positions that they're experts in, and so everybody has their role to play. Everybody plays their part, and you are on their sidelines, kind of half cheerleader, half correction officer. So yeah, I think you're right. I would agree with that.
Now, I always like to say things and I backpedal a little bit, but because I think there's always a level of respect that I give to somebody that I feel like they're not just all about soft skills. Maybe like if they're in the tech industry, they have some sort of tech expertise, maybe where you kind of feel like, oh, well, they know where I'm coming from, especially if you're in the trenches. And you know that, oh, well, this person has done my job. Or, it doesn't have to be that way exactly, but you feel like they have some level of understanding what you're going through. Mm-hmm. Because you don't want someone that's just positive, rah-rah all the time. They need to have some sort of empathy for you and what you're going through. But they also need to bring you out of your, when you're like, oh, man, this sucks. We have to work so hard and we have to do, there's so many challenges. They can empathize with you and understand what you're going through and not just poo-poo your whininess, but say like, look, I understand it. I get it. But let me show you where we're going. Check this out. This is going to be our future here. We've got a rough road ahead, but when we get here, it's going to be so much better. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, that's good.
One thing I noticed was you started out by talking about people quitting bosses, but then Dave, you switched the term to leader. And it might be a kind of an old cliche, but I think it's a good thing to highlight, is that there is a difference between a boss and a leader.
Yes.
A boss is the person who's there to make sure that you are doing all the stuff you're supposed to and get you in trouble when you're not, right? And they're kind of, and the whole entire spirit of a boss is, more of a manager, more of a like nose to the grindstone, pointer finger out, ready to point out everything that's wrong about what you do. Whereas a leader, they appreciate your skill set and the value that you bring, which you both talked about that. And they're there to set the tone and lead the direction and lead the way and say, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is what we're aiming for. And then also pointing out when people are doing it right, when they're doing it well. That looks amazing. I see your hard work. I appreciate that. You're hitting the target, and rewarding that, rewarding it with good pay and benefits is great, but people really just want to know they're appreciated. And I think that goes a long way with people. For me, when I was, when we talk about toxic environments or unhealthy places to be, I think it's often, what makes it that way is when it's unhealthy, when you're not appreciated, when you're not seen, when you're not valued as a person. And I think what makes the best leader is somebody who loves people. You have to love people if you're going to be in a leadership role.
That's good.
So true. I think, there's such a contrast between a boss and a leader. And I would say like a boss is a terrible leader. If you're just a boss, you're not a great leader. And if you're a boss, you probably have some authority, but you don't really have any leadership skills. So you just sort of try to exert your authority and try to make stuff happen. Whereas if you're a leader, you are inspiring people to follow you. When you're a boss, you're behind somebody and pushing them or whipping them or saying, move, right. It's like this outdated model of leadership. Maybe it's carried over from medieval times or something where somebody was put over an authority over workers and trying to force them to do, hard physical labor. Or, you still see it like with prison inmates and maybe labor camps or slavery. That's the type of picture that a boss conjures for me. Like that's what a boss is. It's like a taskmaster and a slave owner.
Well, I mean, yeah, the whole, adjective of bossy, is negative. And I think one is demands respect. Like, I'm going to demand this from you. And the other commands respect in the sense that people give you respect because of what you're doing and the way you're doing it. And I think because we have to, as leaders, we have to be able to, people need to get on the same page and actually perform what we're asking of them. We can't just be like, oh, well, whatever, and laissez-faire. And, it's not even that everybody has to like you all the time, but they ought to respect you and where the team is going.
Right.
Because, those things all have to be in line. So it's not like you have to be friendly and bend the rules for everybody. It's in fact the opposite, right? And in fact, you guys have shared with me too that basically if you create an environment where you're not dealing with employee problems, that just creates resentment. And if you don't have the kind of like the discipline in place or the structure to move people out of situations that they don't belong in, that really can create a bad environment for others.
Yeah, I think the quote was, and I think I saw this on Building a Story Brand's Instagram, but it was something like the best way to kill a good employee is to tolerate a bad one.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've learned over the years of trying to learn how to become a boss and then how to become a leader that sometimes it's difficult to address behavior that isn't what you want to see in your workplace, or sometimes not addressing inappropriate behavior is perceived as tolerating it. And when you have an employee who's looking to see how far they can push the limits, the more you tolerate, the more they're going to push. And when you have a great employee who is working their tail off for you and making you a lot of money and making you look good, and then they're sitting next to an employee who is playing video games when they're supposed to be working, or just doing the bare minimum, and how does that make that good employee feel? They want to know that they're seen and respected and appreciated, and that other people can't get away with not having this level of excellence that they have.
Right.
A few years ago, we took our whole team through this course. It's by John Maxwell. It's called The 5 Levels of Leadership or something like that, where it says, like, here's the worst type of leader, and it starts with boss. It was life-changing for me because it really highlighted, like, what a bad leader looks like, and then, like, the 4th worst, the 3rd worst, the 2nd worst, and what you really want to be, like a type 1 leader. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend that content. Really, really good. I think it's available for purchase on the internet.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, if we can find a link. Yeah, it's kind of old. I don't know if it's still for sale, but really, really good. And it talked about like the boss is going to want to demand authority, boss you around, order you around. They don't care about the relationship. They don't care about people. They care about tasks and getting things done. A bad boss is task-oriented. A great leader is people-oriented, and a great leader understands, like, we can still get this done, but I want to do this in such a way that not only does this get done, but everybody involved with the process comes out of it on the other side better for having gone through it. Like, there's a way to do it in such a way that people are transformed by stuff rather than they're defeated and they're broken and they go home and want to rethink their life choices and want to, maybe quit their job,
Yeah. And I got to say, I'm pretty thankful that I really haven't had, I can't really think of any really bad bosses that I've had or horrible. There have been situations that have been difficult. And, maybe some that were just they meant well, but it just were maybe ill-equipped to some degree. But nothing that's, was really a total negative experience. But I would say that one of the things too that's been helpful is, I think about the Strengths Finder and just knowing where you stand, where you're strong and where you're weak. And, think about with movies, they say, I don't know, they give different ratios, but they say it's 90% in casting, but you got to start off with casting people for the right roles. And if you don't do that, you're going to have a real uphill battle. But so that's the other thing too. If you've got the wrong person in the job, the best thing to do is let them go quickly, or find recast them in a different role. 'Cause you need to know what they're strong at and really gear their roles to that. And if you're the employee, you need to be working hard at that, and then figuring out how to mitigate those weaknesses and not spend a lot of time and energy on helping somebody try to overcome their weaknesses, but pair them up with someone that is strong in that area, or you don't want to find that you're putting so much time and effort into things that you're not good at, but really excelling in where you're strong.
That's good.
That's good.
Yeah. So just to recap on that, StrengthsFinder is a test that you can take. It's by Gallup. They have a website. They also have a book called StrengthsFinders 2.0 that you can purchase on Amazon, where you can take a test, find out your top 5 strengths. We took our whole team through the StrengthsFinders tests and found out what their strengths were. It was really valuable to learn and to know because, and then there's a second level of taking the test where for a little bit more money, you can find out also your weaknesses. Keeping in mind that your strengths are your strengths, and everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. But it's helpful sometimes to know and understand where you're weak, where you just, it wouldn't even really make a lot of sense to put a lot of effort into doing certain tasks because it's just not where you're strong. And that's where you need to hire somebody to fill in those gaps. Know where you're not strong and find somebody who has the skills and the strengths to make up where you're weak. And so it was really valuable for us to find that out. And so when you have an employee who's not like you, that's a good thing. And to see the value in who they are, appreciating that they aren't like you can be one of your best moves that you make. And we have an employee on our team who her top strengths are our biggest weaknesses. And she compliments us so well. Shout out to you, Kate.
Yeah, because I had taken the test, maybe a couple of years ago, but I just recently paid for that upgrade to see what my full list was because I wanted to see where my weaknesses were. Because I'm thinking about, okay, to take the business to the next level, what do I need to hire for and not try to spin my wheels trying to do? And none of it was, it was all pretty much what I thought, but it was just good to confirm, okay, for me, anyone that can do sort of detail-oriented things that is on top of those kinds of I'm just not good at details or anything that's repetitive or anything in those categories is just not as a weakness for me, basically. So I need to find people that are really good at that, organization and planning, scheduling, all those kinds of things. That's not my forte.
So if you need a job,
turn in your StrengthsFinder results to Dave.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that's good. It reminds me, Google they did this study for I think it was 3 years long. They studied, they had all these different teams working on all these various projects. They studied all these different aspects, and then they published the results, and they told everybody, here's what we discovered. And they found that it didn't have really anything to do with the intelligence level, the education level, or all these things that you would think would, how many hours you worked, how hard you worked, your work ethic. These were not the things that determined success. The things that determined success for Google's teams was what they called psychological safety. They said they were able to isolate this one metric where the teams that felt the most psychological safety, which means they felt like I'm not going to be judged for who I am when I come to this place. My my contribution and my input is going to be valued and validated. And so when I'm a part of this team, we are a team, and I feel great about that. And just that singular component was not only contributed to the most successful projects, but those projects also, shockingly, they brought in the most dollars revenue for the company.
Wow.
Yeah, because innovation is all about being able to put those ideas out there, crazy ideas, and not be thinking, oh, that's too crazy, and I'm going to be judged on that, right?
Yeah. So tune in for Horrible Bosses 2.0. No, just kidding. We can't say that. We're going to have to finish this one up another time, but to be continued, and we'll share our bad boss stories. But thanks for joining us and with Real Talk Unscripted, Bad Boss Edition. Have a great
Good
day,
Boss Edition.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for spending time with us at the Extremely Valid Points podcast. To learn more about this episode, see our show notes at extremelyvalidpoints.com. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you download your podcasts. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/extremelyvalid. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram at EVP_podcast. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time with some extremely valid points.